Hey, good afternoon. This is Nick Kremydas. I'm the CEO for the South Carolina Association of Realtors, and I am happy to introduce to you the president of the South Carolina Realtors, David Phillips, who is joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Glad to have everyone on the webinar today. Thank you for taking your time out.
We've got a few folks on the line, and what I would ask you, just as a housekeeping tip, if you've got a question or a comment, please type it into the chat section there in your sidebar, and we will answer or attempt to answer all your questions once the presentation is done. We'll take a few minutes to go through a few issues that are coming up, and then we will answer your questions as best we can. So David, I think I'm ready to get started. How about you?
I'm ready. Whenever you are, I'm ready, Nick.
All right, well, let's go. All right. This, as you can see on your screen, this is a picture of the National Association of Realtors award-winning office space in Washington, D.C., just a stone's throw from the Capitol. The legislative meetings are my favorite meetings of the year. We get to learn about the National Association's issues. We get to learn about the committees and their work that take place at the National Association. And my favorite part is that we get to visit Capitol Hill and meet with all of our congressmen. It's a great week of learning more about our realtor family, our 1.1 million members nationally. But there's one thing that's keeping you from being there, and you've got to register. If you don't register, you can't attend. Here's the link. Registration is currently open. There is no cost to register for the event for realtor members, but you do have to pay for your travel and your hotel while you're there. And DC can be kind of an expensive place to visit, but NAR has provided a number of hotels and other options for you while you're in DC. So first things first, go in and register. We typically have about 100 realtors from South Carolina that will register on an average year. This year, I would tell you, is not an average year. We've got some very important issues that we're trying to move forward in Washington. And the most pressing one right now is the renewal of the National Flood Insurance Program, which we'll talk about more in a second. So when you do go register, this is what the website looks like. Very straightforward, very easy. But if you've never attended a national meeting before, the schedule can be a little overwhelming. There are so many options to choose from, and NAR has helped simplify the registration process, and more importantly, simplify your planning for the event. So if you go to the website, I'd recommend clicking on where you see the arrow pointing to meetings and schedule, and it'll drop down and show you suggested schedules depending on what your interest is. If you're an agent, a broker, an AE, if you're have a specific staff role, if you're a national director or a president of your local association, NAR has put together sample schedules for you to follow. If you're able to attend from the 15th to the 20th, you will walk away with so much information to share with your local association. We don't have enough time today to cover all the benefits, but I wanted to share with you some of our highlights of the week so that you can plan for it, and perhaps it might encourage you to register if you haven't already registered. So our highlight is our Hill visits. They traditionally take place on the Wednesday of the legislative meetings. This year, that falls on May 17th. And we've got an interesting and I think a challenging schedule for our realtor members that are attending this year. At 7:30 in the morning, we are hosting a legislative breakfast. This will be on the Capitol grounds this year, not at the hotel. We are inviting our congressional delegation and their staff to join us. Our national lobbying team will be there as well, and we'll get a full briefing on all the issues at hand. We are in the process of scheduling Hill visits, meetings with our congressmen in their office, which will take place during the day. If you've attended those before, you know that the schedules can be a little hectic. We have to work around the congressmen's schedules, but generally they're very good about meeting with us when we're in Washington. We'll be wrapping up that day with a reception at 3 o'clock. And that evening, our very own Nell Pastel is being honored by being inducted into the RPAC Hall of Fame, joining many other South Carolina realtors that have already been inducted. So a very, very full day, great day of events and meetings. And it's important that we prepare for these meetings in advance, and I'll explain what I mean by that. This is a map of the Capitol and the surrounding office buildings where the Senate and House members will host us and meet with us. If you can see on the map, the Russell Senate building, which is on the north end of the U.S. Capitol, to get to the Longworth building, for example, which is a House office building on the south side of the Capitol, can take as long as 30, maybe even 40 minutes to get from one to the other. So as we put out these schedules, which we'll have out in a few weeks, keep in mind that travel around the Capitol is restricted. There are safety precautions and safety checks at each building. You're going to go through metal detectors. You're going to go through security checkpoints. Leave your pocket knives, as much metal things in your hotel. It'll make your day a lot smoother as we go through the our visits that day. Let me just share with you a couple of things about the agenda for that day. One of the most important things to know and to be up to date on are the issues that we're going to talk about. NAR will identify these issues in the coming weeks with specific talking points. Flood insurance reform is definitely going to be on that list this year. And every congressman has a federal political coordinator that's assigned to them. These are our team leaders. And currently you see the list. These team leaders will be leading each delegation as we speak to each of our congressmen, but they can't do it alone. And so they're going to have a team of realtors with them, and our job is to share not just the nuts and bolts of an issue, but to also share some real world stories of how these are impacting our clients and customers, and how these issues are impacting your business here at home in South Carolina. They need to be able to connect the dots on these various issues. So in advance of the Hill visits, we've scheduled this webinar several months before the meetings are going to take place. So the talking points haven't been published yet by NAR, and we don't have all of the appointments set for our Hill visits. But there will be emails with links to all of this information, as I mentioned, in the coming weeks. So the key thing is to make sure that you've highlighted the information ahead of time. If you know your congressman, there's nothing wrong with sending them a note and saying, hey, we look forward to seeing you in May. We're going to have a big delegation there at the Capitol to meet with you. And remember that we're not just 100 realtors from South Carolina on the Hill. That day, there will probably be tens of thousands of realtors on the Hill meeting with their congressmen from all over the country. So we're part of a much bigger network part of a much bigger family that's pushing these issues that impact our industry. So here's some pictures from Hill visits in the past. You see our various members, congressmen, and whatnot. David, what's one of your favorite parts of the legislative meetings in D.C.?
Well, Nick, and I want to emphasize again the schedule. Like you said, that's always something to make sure you've got. And I love the Hill visits of going and visiting one-on-one with folks, and that picture of Trey Gowdy and myself. I remember when several of us were in his office, he told us point blank, if you don't bring your issues to us, we don't know about it. He said, we're in a bubble up here in Washington. We don't hear about what's going on at home. So if you don't tell us, we're unaware of it. So they really like to hear from us, and they're grateful that we come and very appreciative. So it's really good to go, and I agree with you. It's one of my favorite meetings that we have all year.
Thank you, David. In addition to the Hill visits, that's only one day of the conference. NAR has other events scheduled. President David attended the White House briefing a couple of years ago. They're doing those again this year. Space is limited on those special events. So if you have an interest, you've got to register early to attend. But the other events that you need to know about are region events. South Carolina is part of Region 4. NAR has the country divided into 13 regions. So we're partnered with Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And we get together at least twice during the week. One as a social event, the reception, which will take place on Thursday night at 6 p.m. in the main hotel in the Marriott. And our caucus meeting, which is our business meeting of the region, this will take place Friday afternoon, which is the day before the NAR Board of Directors meeting. So a couple of tips for the meetings. Number one, as you saw by the map on the Hill, there's a lot of walking that we're going to be doing in DC. So please pack some comfortable shoes. And I always pack an umbrella just to keep the rain away. You know, if you have it, you're never going to use it. So if everybody brings an umbrella, I think we can scare the rain away for the week. I have been caught in the rain on Capitol Hill, got soaked, wet as a cat, and it was not a fun experience. Had to throw away that suit after that. But plan for the weather, look ahead, and the most important thing is wear some comfortable shoes. It is a business dress meeting. We are doing the business of NAR, representing our members back home and across the country. So business dress is a requirement for these meetings. And remember that in addition to all this, NAR's committees, if you serve on an NAR committee or are interested in serving, sit in on the dozens of meetings that will be taking place during the week. Learn about the governance of NAR, learn about what this organization really is and what they do for all of us every year and every day. And because there's such a strong networking element here, don't forget to pack your business cards. And this might sound a little silly, but the meeting rooms tend to be a little cold. And so, you know, pack a sweater or a jacket so you don't freeze while you're in the various meetings. But if you're on a tight schedule, my advice to you would be to plan to arrive on Tuesday, participate in the Hill visits on Wednesday, and leave on Thursday. But I would strongly encourage you, if you're able to attend from Tuesday to the Board of Directors meeting on Saturday, which will end around 1 o'clock, I would strongly encourage you. There's nothing more inspiring than watching the Board of Directors, which has over 900 members, conduct the business of this association. And it is a tremendous feat to even organize a group that big. But if you've never seen it, you got to see it in action at least once. You'll get a much deeper appreciation for what our National Association does. So David, that's kind of my quick overview, some do's and don'ts. Do you have any other thoughts you wanted to share with the group?
Well, yeah, I wanted to touch on the breakfast that we're going to have this year a little different. So I do like some of the changes we're having. I think we'll have some of the legislators come to that this year and more of them. And I think that's very informative. And also, we have some of our NAR speakers come and they update us on some things. And you always learn something at these meetings. So I've never been to one that I didn't bring a good bit of information back. So it is one of my favorite meetings. I enjoy it. It's action-packed. It's something to do every day. There's nothing boring about it. And even in Washington, if you have some time after a meeting or something, you can have plenty of places to see. So Washington's full of history. So it's a great place to visit. And if you can make it a business meeting for your business, that's even better. So that's what I have to say. I think if you make it, put it in your schedule, it's well worth doing.
And during the week, we'll hear from Lawrence Yoon. He'll give us the latest residential and commercial economic updates. Chris Wallace is one of the keynote speakers at the event. NAR always has the decision makers at the table, whether it's HUD or FHA or the CFPB. They will have panel discussions on issues that are important and relevant and timely for our industry. So please check out the schedule. I know I've said this already, but if you've never ever been to an NAR meeting, this is the one I would strongly encourage you to sign up for. It's on the East Coast. The travel there is relatively easy. And like I said, you can be in and out and cover a lot of stuff in just a few days. So with that, David, why don't we go to the questions? I've got one question asking is if there is going to be transportation to the Hill that morning. Because our realtor members are spread out among probably about a dozen hotels, we don't have organized transportation. It's very difficult to get everybody together. The Metro has an easy stop to get to just about anywhere in DC. And of course, there are Uber and cabs available. It's too far to walk from where we will, but there are certainly other transportation options.
And also sharing a cab or Uber is a way to do it too. Now I've done that in the past, and you split that cost up, and it's really very reasonable that way.
Yeah, and we will. That's a good idea, David. I will share the registration list with all the attendees as we get a little closer. So if you see a friend on the list, reach out to them before you leave town and see if y'all can coordinate your schedules. I think that would be helpful. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, Nick, on this meeting, this is one meeting that you can be in Washington, D.C. that day and come home from a meeting and still go to work that afternoon. I've actually done that. Been in Washington in the morning and home in the evening, so before 5 o'clock and come back to work. So, like you said, it's a pretty easy way to get there. Sometimes you can get a direct flight, and it's not too bad. And share a cab from the hotels to the airport and things of that sort. So you can minimize your cost a lot of ways.
And I get one last thing I'll say before we end the webinar. When we do meet with our congressman, if you happen to be able to be there for the Hill Visit Day, remember, we're there to talk about our realtor issues. I know we all have our own personal politics, and we may have our own personal issues that we want to talk to the congressman about. That is not the time or the place to do it. We're there to talk about our NAR realtor issues, whether it's flood insurance or FHA reform or tax reform, which likely are the issues that we're going to be covering this year. So we've got to stay on point and speak as an industry and not get off on tangents that are unrelated to our business. It waters down the message for the day. So President David, I don't see any other questions. So why don't we sign off and thank everybody for being here.
Well, I appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy day to do the webinar, and I've always enjoyed coming to you, and appreciate Nick and the staff at SCR for putting this on. I think it's well worth it. And look forward to seeing you in Washington, D.C. in a few weeks.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Take care.